Welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Got a great show on this Tuesday evening. Fun stuff. I'm going to make fun of Ivanka Trump. I love it. I love my job. Not only that, we're going to go after Ivanka Trump for being a rich person, telling other poor people what is best for them, apparently, because that's what we do here in this country, is we tell poor people what they want. Interesting. Then we have an interesting new defense by Don Jr. When it comes to the Mueller investigation, and I think he's getting a little nervous when it comes to the, the Cohen hearings happening tomorrow. So Michael Cohen is going to talk. It's going to be very interesting. Apparently, he has some damaging information about Trump. Well, look, we've heard that before, but then again, if anybody's got information that is damaging to the Trump family, it's got to be somebody like Cohen. So that should be interesting, and I'm definitely going to talk about that tomorrow. But we've got this Don Jr. story. Then we have a continuation from yesterday. You remember how a ex-Clinton staffer was going after Bernie Sanders. Politico had another hit piece out. Now we have the response, and it is awesome. So we'll talk about that. And then we have a Republican looking to cut school lunch funding for kids for not having high enough reading scores. So that story, infuriating, just like a lot of the other stuff that we have today, as usual. So we'll get to it. First, please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Helps us out greatly. Also, I have some, patrons to shout out first. So we'll get to that. Those are people who support the show. If you're watching, Claudia May, Colin Barber, Craig Ransom, Crystal Rose, Cubron, Dariet Brooks, Daipul Onrunta, Damali Dixon, Damon Harvey, Dan Peachy, Daniel Luna, Darius Miles, and Daryl Takara. So thank you to all those people whose names I just mentioned. They're patrons, they're supporters of the show, and they help keep independent media going. So we rely on you a lot for keeping the show going. So thank you. You help keep the lights on. You help keep me being able to do this, do the show. So couldn't do it without you guys. If you want to be a patron, sign up, patreon.com/TYTNation. Now, a viewer had asked me just recently what the difference was between channel memberships and Patreon. So the difference is, I guess the main difference is how much you want to pay, how much you want to support the show. So channel memberships is $4.99, right? So now a little bit of that does go to YouTube, right? So they take a cut. Patreon also takes a cut too. So I haven't really run the numbers to see what actually goes more towards me than these different companies. But the main difference, I guess, is Patreon, you choose how much you want to support me. So you can choose to $1, $3, $5, $20. I've seen a couple of 50s, and massive thank yous to the people who do that. As far as channel memberships goes, it's only a flat $4.99. So you want to choose that option, that's up to you. Either way, a good chunk of that money does go to support the show. So I appreciate that. All right. So hopefully that answers your question. All right. Now, like I said, we got a great show for you guys today. We're going to start out with going after Ivanka Trump. So let's jump into that. Actually, you know what? No, I want to give you my thoughts on the Bernie Sanders town hall. So let me do that. And I don't have any corresponding clips, but I just want to talk about my general takeaway from that. Okay. So last night, Bernie Sanders did a town hall on CNN. And unsurprisingly, he got a bunch of questions that were establishment approved. For example, there was a question about him not being a Democrat. You can't make that up, right? So here you have these questions about, are you Democrat? And then, of course, there's the questions about the sexual assault, harassment allegations that aren't related to him, but were in the middle of his campaign. Interestingly enough, you have somebody in Kamala Harris's campaign that is resigning, that is leaving that campaign because of sexual assault and sexual harassment allegations. No word on that from CNN. I'm pretty sure she's not going to get asked about that. But again, you know, look, if it's fair game for Bernie Sanders, then maybe they should ask someone else. But in reality, I don't hold either candidate accountable. Why is that? It's because there are crappy people in every campaign. It's not a campaign problem. It is a human problem. It is a people problem. So that's what's going on here. So as far as, like I said, the town hall, how Bernie Sanders did, I think he did pretty good. Bernie Sanders, yeah, had a couple of missteps here. The reparations question, I think there's some mixed reactions on that. There are some people like, well, look, the term reparations in the understanding of most people is fairly vague. So when he asked, well, what do you mean by reparations? Look, there's a good chance he doesn't know that there are actually been a lot of people working on models for reparations and what that would possibly look like. And I mean reparations for slavery. So, okay, that's a fair question. That's a fair criticism. I actually think that what he said, in my opinion, was fair. But at the same time, I'm not a person of color, so, and I'm not somebody who's really dived into reparations. And I'm going to be honest, that's because of white privilege. So I've got the privilege to sit here and say that that does not affect me. And so that's not a big concern of mine. And I'm completely honest. And so I don't have that perspective. And so I'm not a good judge of whether or not that is a great answer. The only people that can really judge it are people who would be affected by this, people of color. And so when they say, hey, I don't think that's a good answer, it's really good that you should listen to that. I mean, you should absolutely listen to that. But nonetheless, it wasn't a bad question. It wasn't a gotcha. But I think he answered a lot of these questions really well. I think his answer on Venezuela was well, and making sure to point out that we are not interested in regime change, that we are not interested in going to war in Venezuela. That is excellent, because that would be a disaster. So overall, I think he did really well. It is Bernie Sanders. So you could probably point out that, Jeff, you're a little biased because you like Bernie Sanders. Yeah, but it's not to the point of where you can't criticize or nitpick. Generally, I like what Bernie Sanders has to say, but that doesn't mean he is above reproach. And it doesn't mean that you can point out that, hey, that answer could be a little bit more tweaked. We could look at this a little bit better. He could have enunciated a little better. And then, of course, there were some fantastic moments where he was asked, are you going to tax the rich to pay for some of your proposals? Now, good, if you want to criticize him from the left and saying, hey, why don't we reject that framing and actually talk about the more MMT framing, right? Which is, you don't have to tax in order to, or raise taxes in order to pay for things, because we have our own money supply, we print our own money, meaning that as long as we have the real world capital, and not money capital, but as in real world resources to do these things, then we can do whatever we want. That is a fair criticism from the left. Bernie Sanders comes at it from the more traditional framing around you need to tax people in order to pay for things. Again, if you want to criticize him for that, that's fine. But I love his answer as, you need to tax the rich? And he says, damn right I am. Well, that's a strong answer. And it's not so much the content as it is the delivery, as it is the conviction that I think made that answer so great, is because, hey, he is being strong. He's being unequivocal. He says, yes, we're going to do what we have to do. We're going to do, this. We're going to tax the rich. And then we're going to actually do things like Medicare for all. I love it. I love it. So, there are some great answers, some not so great answers, but generally, I think Bernie Sanders is in a really strong position, and there were a lot of people in the audience. Now, let me talk about the audience for a second here. So, a lot of the questions you might have noticed, and there's a Twitter thread going on here about this, how some of the questions were, of course, staged and planted by CNN. Now, look, let's be honest. Anybody who asks questions on CNN already had been vetted, right? Chosen and vetted to ask those questions. So that's kind of how town halls actually work, right? So who did they get to ask those questions? Well, a lot of people that are in the news media establishment. Hey, it is what it is, right? Nonetheless, with the questions that he got, his answers were pretty good. He ended up getting a lot of applause during some of those answers. So I think those answers were even impressing people in the audience. Of course, then you could also talk about, yeah, but people in the audience, well, they would also be more predisposed to Bernie Sanders. But I think an interesting counterpoint to that would be the fact that, let's go to the fundraising, right? So Bernie Sanders has raised a lot of money so far since announcing, more than any other candidate, right? From small donors. 40% of those donors are brand new. They never donated to a presidential campaign before. They are brand new donors for Sanders. That's really, really good. That's amazing. So you want to talk about that, and you want to talk about people getting excited in that crowd, in that audience. I think it makes sense that some of those people had not actually been exposed to Bernie Sanders before. So I think overall, this town hall, even though it was, again, on CNN, and it was set up, and I love the way he threw shade at Wolf Blitzer, by the way. Oh, there's so many great things about that I don't have video for. But I think, even though it was a little bit of a setup with some pretty dodgy questions, Bernie Sanders, I think, overall made a positive impression. And I think people who have not been exposed to him before might have came away saying, I like that guy, or he's somebody to think about supporting. So, anyway, okay. So, that said, there's my recap. So now, let's go to Ivanka. So recently, first daughter, Ivanka Trump, was interviewed on Fox News. And she was asked a question about the Green New Deal, AOC's proposal. It's not necessarily a piece of legislation yet, but it's a broad policy framework of ideas that, of course, can be tweaked and modified before it becomes a piece of legislation. So now it's also a bit of a litmus test. And now some of the things that are in the Green New Deal include things right now, a guaranteed basic income and a job guarantee. Now, she was asked about this, Ivanka was, in this Fox interview, and let's get to her answer about what she thinks about these programs and the opportunity that they may bring.
I don't think most Americans in their heart want to be given something. I've spent a lot of time traveling around this country over the last 4 years. People want to work for what they get. So I think this idea of a guaranteed minimum is not something most people want. They want the ability to be able to secure a job. They want the ability to live in a country where there's the potential for upward mobility.
Americans just don't want a guarantee. Well, they want to work. I know, because I talk to lots of people. No, I don't think so. Look, aside from the fact that there's no way she's ever talked to anyone making less than $1 million a year, she herself, she's never had to work a day in her life. So how would she know, first, what it is to actually work, right? And two, know what the American people actually want. This person was handed literally everything that she has on a silver platter. She's never had to work in her life. And look, I have proof of that, right? And you say, oh, what are you talking about? She's got successful businesses and she's making millions of dollars. Well, those millions of dollars are not from her hard work and not for her running a business. No, it's literally from her family connections. As Trump biographer Tim O'Brien noted on Twitter, Ivanka Trump's financial disclosure forms show that her income streams largely derive from assets that have not required her to put in any kind of work. So these are just investments, and not only that, but they're trust funds as well, for her to get money without having to do anything, without having to work. In fact, O'Brien observes, Ivanka Trump gets lucrative annual streams of income, rents, and capital gains, $1 million here, $5 million there, from her biz, her husband's biz, and her father's biz, that she largely gets for just sitting there. For example, her 2018 financial disclosure form shows that Ivanka made more than $5 million in rents and royalties from the Ivanka M. Trump Business Trust, which was set up after she took a job at her father's White House, and whose assets are overseen by relatives of husband Jared Kushner, as reported by the New York Times in 2017. Other sources of income include nearly $4 million in hotel-related revenue from an LLC set up to lower the Trump family's future estate tax burdens. Oh, that's classy. And over $2 million in salary and severance from the Trump Payroll Corporation. So, everything that she has literally set up for her by her family and other people. And look, even her job in the administration, she wouldn't have gotten that if it wasn't for her daddy. So who is she to tell struggling Americans what they want? She is a wealthy heiress who will probably inherit a few $1 million from her dad and not have to pay that much taxes on it. Again, one of the main focuses of the Trump administration and the Republicans has been to eliminate or lower the estate tax. And the recent tax bill has actually been able to do that. So that people like Ivanka Trump, when her dad dies, she gets all that money tax-free. And you know who else got all that money? She is a second-generation heiress. Donald Trump inherited a majority of his money from his father, and now Ivanka Trump will inherit money from her father as well. This is dynastic wealth. This is not what America is about. And so, no, of course she doesn't want regular human beings to have a minimum. Why is that? Because she would have to slightly pay a little bit more taxes in order to give some people dignity and a chance to make something better for themselves. And who knows? Somebody propped up by this program or these government programs like education or free college, in the case of the Green, some of AOC's other programs that she supports other than the Green New Deal, would make it so that people have an opportunity to become millionaires. Well, now, if more people can become millionaires, more people can make it rich because they have this opportunity, well, then what makes Ivanka Trump so special? Especially given the fact that she didn't have to work for anything and became a millionaire just by being a member of the Lucky Sperm Club. So, and here's the thing, right? So I want more opportunity. Progressives want opportunity. That's why we're in favor of these programs. It's not about just showering money on people and because we expect them not to work or we want them not to work. No, that's ridiculous. What we want is to create opportunity. And what creates the most opportunity? Other than, of course, getting a good education. Making sure that all your basic needs are met. You ever heard of the hierarchy, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So you want to make sure that people's basic needs are met. Housing, food, power, things like that, right? The very basic things of humanity. And then once people have that, they're able to move up to higher pursuits, getting an education, making sure that they can, take some risks, create a business, things like that, do something different. And that's what this is about. This is about creating opportunity, right? And look, when it comes to a universal basic income, and I realize not everybody agrees with that, but it is at least an idea that might actually do something and might actually help to create that opportunity. There will, of course, be lazy people. It's not like lazy people will never exist, right? But I do believe that the vast majority, and already it shows in the government programs that we already have, that people use that to lift themselves up and have opportunity to do something better with their lives. Then again, of course, the existence of people like Ivanka Trump kind of undercuts that argument, because look, how many wealthy heirs go on to actually work hard and create something, right? No, but seriously, kidding aside, these people don't understand what regular people go through, how they live. Look, I've worked in a factory for years. I do understand. I'm somebody who climbed from lower class, working class, to a kind of sort of on the edge of a middle class lifestyle. And so, I've had experience being broke, growing up poor, working hard, working in the factories, working at the grocery store, and things like that. Ivanka Trump does not have that experience. She has the experience of getting money from dad and then basically living off it and trying to tell the rest of you what is good for you. She does not know. And finally, to go up against AOC, right? Somebody who did work for a lot of for everything that she has, right? And accomplished something amazing in winning election, becoming a congresswoman, is sort of the height of tone deafness. Okay. Moving on. Now we get to the Twitter reaction. Okay. Now, in a recent interview with Fox News released on Monday, Ivanka Trump went after AOC's Green New Deal. Now, in the Green New Deal, there is things like a universal basic income and a job guarantee. Now, Ivanka responded with this.
I don't think most Americans in their heart want to be given something. I've spent a lot of time traveling around this country over the last 4 years. People want to work for what they get. So I think this idea of a guaranteed minimum is not something most people want. They want the ability to be able to secure a job. They want the ability to live in a country where there's the potential for upward mobility.
Okay, so a couple things. Now, for one, Americans do want to work. She's right about that. And actually, Americans work really, really hard, but they're not seeing the fruit of that labor. In fact, most of their money ends up going to the top 1% to people like Ivanka Trump. Now, this kind of program, the job guarantee and universal basic income, would help those who do want to work but either cannot find good jobs or have had their jobs displaced due to technology and now have to relearn a skill. You know what would also help them? Free college education. So to help them retrain for the jobs of the future, right? Now, think of the factory workers displaced by automation, right? Think of someone now who is displaced and who doesn't have any marketable skills because the factory closed down, or not just closed down, or maybe just got replaced by a robot. What is that person supposed to do? Well, this income would actually help give this person a time to retrain, to reskill, to come back and work at a higher paying job. That's the whole point. Or you can think of the coal miner whose job will be eliminated as coal gets phased out. Coal is already deeply unprofitable. It's actually cheaper. Wind power is actually cheaper to generate than coal and is much, much safer. So coal is a dying industry as it is, partly thanks to, of course, alternative energies, as well as natural gas. We have a natural gas boom. So now you got to think of that coal miner, right? What are they going to do? Well, you got to take care of those people, right? Especially if you're going to do something as ambitious as the Green New Deal, you have to make sure that the people in the industries affected are not going to be left behind. because that's the last thing you want to do. So now you want to allow them the dignity of being able to take care of their families and their lives while giving them a chance to retrain for the new economy, right? So, and the whole point of that, of course, is to make sure that they can add to the new economy, as well as making sure that they don't fall into poverty and despair. That's what this is about. It's not about giving money to lazy people. Yet there is a purpose here to allow that a minimum amount to every human being. And of course, while there will be lazy people who choose not to work, I think a majority of Americans will use these programs to benefit, to better themselves. Now, speaking of lazy, right? The person spreading this message is literally one of the laziest people because she got her entire fortune handed to her. You know what she did? Pretty much nothing. She basically makes a lot of money from trusts and things that were set up by her family. Weird, right? Now, she's considered to be very successful, and it's strange how that works out for rich people. You get handed a bunch of money when you're born the son or daughter of a rich person, and you get all this respect, but get handed money by the government, and you're a lazy, mooching parasite. Strange how that works, right? Now, the difference is, of course, where you get that money. But in both cases, the money was not earned. It was given. Now, the internet weighed into this, and I love this, right? Cynical Shell says, "Oh, Ivanka, you are way out of your league if you think you can win this debate with AOC. Because AOC crushes all over anyone who ever dares to try to question her. Because she is a master of social media. And because she's an actual fighter. And the Republicans are not used to that." Now, Dan Moynihan says, "When Ivanka gets a meeting with a world leader, does she tell herself that it's because she has earned it? What about when she helps to choose the president of the World Bank? Or when China suddenly gives her a bunch of new trademarks? Is that what she thinks meritocracy is? She wouldn't understand meritocracy if it slapped her in the face. Again, she has no real-world experience. She has not made her money by herself. It has all been due thanks to family and family connections. And she is a second-generation heiress. Now, she would never understand what a meritocracy is." Tim O'Brien says, "Ivanka Trump gets lucrative annual streams of income, rents, and capital gains. $1 million here, $5 million here from her biz, her husband's biz, and her father's biz that she largely gets for just sitting there." And O'Brien, of course, is somebody who has chronicled the Trump family. Now, Kazwaita says, "I suppose you've worked for everything you have. Isn't that right, Ivanka?" Good question. Amanda Carpenter says, "Probably the worst person possible to deliver this message, which doesn't even make much sense." David Douglas says, "Yes, because people who have nothing always prefer starving over principles." Good point. "I'm glad you have such a keen connection with the people." Again, I don't think she's ever met with anyone or talked with anyone worth less than $1 million. Anyway, Hookham says, "Ivanka Trump, this may be more idiotic than anything your dumbass dad has ever said." I don't know, man. But at least it sounds somewhat less dumb. At least she can complete say complete sentences. Just saying. All Your Base says, "She's obviously got her father's knack for the inability to grasp concepts that exceed a 280 character limit or aren't discussed on Fox and Friends." Awesome. Don Hansman says, "I'm sure the people who work in her overseas sweatshops only want the pittance she's paid them as well." I forgot about the sweatshops. Oh, man. I can't believe I forgot about the sweatshops. It's true, though. So, it just says so much about a person exploiting labor. And it is absolute exploitation, making sure that these people who work for a living don't even get enough to survive. And she says, well, people want to work. People want the dignity. Right. Oliver says, "Ivanka Trump, who was at every job given to her by her father her entire life, who by luck was born to the luxury life of a money laundering heiress, needs to sit this one out." I agree. Cheryl Pia says, Oh, yes, do tell, princess. KVD says Ivanka is doing stand-up now, and she's pretty good. And finally, Ronald Deffenbaugh says, let them eat cake. Yes. Look, I'm pretty sure like you guys, and like everyone else on the thread, absolutely just love being condescended to by people who literally got handed everything on a silver platter. They didn't earn it. You didn't earn that money. They didn't start from the ground up. I actually have respect to people who have become millionaires and billionaires by actually starting from the ground up. And by the way, it really, really matters how you get that money. If you start a business that crushes everyone, that crushes your employees, that crushes small business, that crushes everyone around you, and exploits the area or destroys the environment in order to do so, then I have no respect for you. But if you actually grow a business, you create a business that is based on paying your workers a fair, a living wage and a good salary while being environmentally conscious, well, then that's awesome. And I think that, that's the way that our businesses are supposed to be. Unfortunately, a majority are not like that. And a lot of our billionaires are not good people. And I think billionaires, it's a failure of the system that creates billionaires, because there should be no such thing. There should be no system where you have 3 to 5 people that are worth more than the bottom 50 to 60% of the country. That system is broken. That system is wrong. It is immoral. But back to these people, right, who think, oh no, I had everything handed to me. I have a massive advantage. These people are born on third and think they hit a triple. And that's what you see here from Miss Ivanka. Why would anyone in their right mind try to take stock in anything that she has to say on the subject of hard work? She is Marie Antoinette, telling you that everything is fine and that, look, maybe you guys should just eat cake if you're unhappy. Americans are hurting every single day, and we need good policies out there to counter that, right? And to help. And whether you think the Green New Deal is that or not, I don't know. But I think even if we disagree, I think we can all agree that Ivanka Trump is probably the worst person to be sending this message. Because as I said before, she has not earned her way, and she has been given everything in her life and doesn't understand what hard work actually is. She is not one of you. She does not have your best interests at heart. So just be warned. Okay. One more here. We'll go before we go to break, and we'll go to the new defense. Donald Trump Jr. Okay. Let's see. All right. So Donald Trump Jr. has an interesting new defense when it comes to crimes found by the Mueller investigation and some of the other investigations that have surrounded the Trump organization and Trump officials in the recent couple of years. Now, he believes that the crimes made in the past are not actually crimes, so that maybe we should stop investigating them. Now, he made this case on Fox. Let's watch.
But that's what they're trying to do. I mean, they're not investigating actual crimes anymore. They're literally just trying to find something that they can make a big deal of. And if that isn't apparent to people around the country, I mean, remember, 2 years, this is going to be it. We finally got them. I've been hearing this for 2 years, where everyone's going to jail. Meanwhile, they haven't actually found anything as it relates to this. What they did was they put incredible pressure on regular guys that couldn't afford $1 million in legal fees and got them to slip up and say something incorrectly. You know, they pretended they were their friends. They got them, and that's all that happened. There are no actual crimes. There's only things that people did in past lives. You know, in 2006, before we even thought we'd ever get into this crazy world. You know, and that's what it is. And they're touting these things as victories. It's not. And what it's been is a total farce. the greatest witch hunt in American
history.
history.
Is Chris Christie wrong that the Southern...
Well, no, by the way, I'm not saying they're not going to try. You know, listen, their dream in life, this is, you know, as political as it gets, their dream in life is to try to find something to get Trump. I mean, it's that old Stalinist tactic, you know, show me the man, I'll show you the crime. We just got to find it, and we can massage things enough. So, you know, there's no doubt that they'll try. But again, I know how we function as a company. I know how we function as individuals. And that's why, despite all of this, for 2 years, we don't appear all that worried because we know there's nothing there.
Define not all that worried. Because you just got to go and look at Donald Trump's Twitter account when he screams about collusion, fake news. It tends to make you think that maybe he's a little bit worried. I don't know. But then again, I love how he says, oh, it's Stalinist. It's a Stalinist tactic. $5 says he heard that somewhere and was like, ooh, I'm going to use that. Stalinist. I have a good idea that he has no idea what he's talking about. You know, like, I don't think he knows what that even means. Stalinist tactic. Really? No, Stalinist tactic would be throw you in the gulag. No trial, no nothing. That's what Stalin did. If you think that's what Robert Mueller is doing, ridiculous, right? But I love and this is the major part of this here that is really interesting. He's basically saying, crimes made in the past, they're not really crimes. So why should we be punished or these guys be punished for those crimes? And of course, he means Paul Manafort is one of the big ones. Talking about how, well, some of the stuff we found went back to 2006 and before. I mean, yeah, but that actually is not true. Surprise, surprise. I know he's lying. Because we actually have facts here. We deal with facts and logic. I don't know if you know that, but he sure doesn't. But I love this, right? So he says, basically, if you're in the middle of doing criminal activity, which did happen during the campaign, by the way, by definition, it's in the past, right? So, and I'm not saying that you should do this, but if somebody punches Don Jr. in the face, afterwards, he can just say, what? Not a crime. It's in the past. Yeah, sure, I did it like 5 minutes ago, but heck, that doesn't mean I should get in trouble. It happened in the past, you dirty Stalinist. I know, it's ridiculous, and it's a ridiculous argument, because they actually were crimes. Lying to investigators, it turns out, lying to the FBI, lying to Congress, they are crimes. It's not as if they just invented these crimes. They have been crimes all along. And these Trump staffers have actually, and these are campaign staffers mostly, they violated those laws. They violated those laws willingly. Again, Manafort was called a hardened criminal who continued to lie after making a plea deal. Come on, man. Look, here's the thing. Mueller's office has issued numerous indictments and filings of alleged crimes committed by those leading Trump's campaign. You know that, right? You're aware of that. Yes, you should be. But, those are in the past. And in some cases, like Manafort's, however, those crimes went on until he was caught. And that's kind of how they were caught. Look, just a few days ago, Mueller's latest filing detailed how former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort, as I mentioned, who's now facing decades in prison for a range of crimes relating to his work in, the Ukraine, both before and after the 2016 election, lied to investigators well after that. And again, as I mentioned, the lying, the plea deal, right? Then you have other crimes. For example, former Trump campaign official Rick Gates. Rick Gates lied to the FBI. So has advisor George Papadopoulos. Then you also have Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn was one of Trump's closest allies through the 2016 campaign. He's awaiting sentencing for, again, lying to the FBI. I wonder why all these officials are lying. Weird. It's almost as if they had something to hide. Or Donald Trump, what are you talking about? You picked the best people, the greatest people. No, you picked the greatest criminals. Because you are just like them. you are a criminal as well. Ugh. Not only that, but you had Roger Stone. Roger Stone was just indicted for, again, lying to Congress and witness tampering, all of which happened after Trump became president. So we're not talking about 2006. We're not talking about before. We're talking about just recently in the last couple of years related to this campaign. You've got to be kidding me. And again, there are various investigations that are circling the president and his family right now, some of which are outside of the Mueller investigation. The Southern District of New York, as was mentioned in that video, that's also a significant case. And not only that, but you have potential financial problems related to the inauguration, which involves suspicious donations from Russians and the NRA. You also have investigations in New York having to do with Donald Trump's tax dodging. The Trump Foundation. The Trump Foundation was literally found to be a sham foundation and was dissolved for a shocking pattern of illegality. Come on, come on. You also have pro-Trump super PACs that were investigated for coordinating with the Trump campaign. All this stuff. And to add on to that, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, they released a report detailing compelling evidence that Trump may have personally committed up to 8 criminal campaign finance and related offenses while running for president and during his first year in office. That, of course, has to do with the hush money payments made to the 2 women who allegedly slept with Donald Trump. Those crimes include issuing false statements to leading a conspiracy to defraud the United States of America. All these crimes took place within the last few years and even after he became president of the United States. Come on. What this is Don Jr. He is desperately trying to paint the investigations into Trump and his family as a purely partisan and political effort. I mean, you heard him. He mentioned the word, this is political. It's not. This is crime. But this is being done as a way to prime Republicans into imposing impeachment following the Mueller report. Now, look, I don't know what the Mueller report's going to say. I don't even know if it's going to become public. But we do know that if it's as bad as the way that Trump is acting, then this could be very significant. This could be very, very terrible. But I love the irony, right? They're claiming a crime is not a crime if it's in the past. But wait, didn't they talk about Hillary and Obama all the time supposedly committing crimes in the past? It kind of makes you wonder what Don Jr. is afraid of, seeing all of this desperation coming from him and his father. Just makes you wonder. Who's next? All right. We'll come back. We're going to take a break. We got more stories for you, including a Sanders spokesman goes off on a Clinton staffer. That's awesome. Hey, guess what? We're relitigating some of 2016. Yay! And then an Arkansas Republican wants to cut school lunch funding to motivate students. Well, we've got that story, and you're probably gonna be really irritated and pissed off for it. So, all right, stay right here. Send your super chats. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. There's a lot of people watching, but not a lot of likes going on. So if you do that, please hit that like button. Really important. And then we will come back in probably a good couple of minutes, and we'll finish up the show with these fantastic stories. You're not going to want to miss it. All right. Around the Nation. Be right back. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Around the nation right here, Jeff Waldorf here with you. So we need to work on Facebook. So I know you guys watch on YouTube, but it is really important that you guys help me get to 10,000 likes on our Facebook page. That is facebook.com/TYTNation. We live stream there. We put up videos there. So it would really help me out to help get to 10,000. We're halfway there. So please like our Facebook page, facebook.com/TYTNation. Really, really important. All right. That said, there any super chats? Let me check here real quick. I don't see any, but you never know. Okay. No super chats. So let's dive into the stories here. We don't have a lot of time. All right. As I dick around with these. Here we go. All right. So yesterday there was an article put out in Politico going after Senator Bernie Sanders. Now that is not surprising. It's another Politico hit piece, right? Now this one was about Bernie Sanders using private jets when he was out there campaigning for Hillary Clinton. Now, of course, this was an obvious smear by ex-Clinton staffers, like the, what was it? Wrong side. There's an obvious smear by ex-Clinton staffers like Zach Pecanis, right? Now, in the article, he referred to Sanders as King Bernie. So, that's great. That's real classy, right? Now, in that article, people like Pecanis, as well as other anonymous ex-Clinton aides, said that they were critical of Bernie Sanders for making requests for him and his staff to use private jets. Now, one of the things in the article says, well, he asked for private jets just for the sake of private jets because he's King Bernie and he wants to float on the clouds, right? Well, look. That's actually not true. Big surprise, right? And this is all, by the way, while he was serving as a campaign surrogate for Hillary Clinton. So he was flying all around the country doing events on behalf of Hillary Clinton to make sure that she does not lose to Donald Trump, which unfortunately didn't quite work. Now, the Sanders teams reported, according to Politico, preference for private jets was a point of tension with the Clinton campaign. But the Clinton campaign spent $15.9 million on travel. Bernie Sanders, a total of $324,000 while he was out campaigning for Clinton. And then the 2 years after, while he had been campaigning for various Democrats in races all over the country, including the midterms, where Democrats basically won back the House. Bernie Sanders went out and campaigned for a lot of those. So, now, again, I told you guys it's not true, what they're saying. And Rania Beatrice, who was Sanders' deputy campaign manager during part of the 2016 campaign, told Politico the campaign never requested a private plane for the sake of having a private plane. So why did he use private jets? Well, the reason was he had a schedule that was so filled with campaign stops that taking commercial flights for some of those was impossible. He couldn't get a public flight, a commercial flight on time. So he ended up having to charter some of those flights ahead of time because he knew the impossibility of the schedule. So he campaigned so difficult, or I'm sorry, not so difficult, but it was so difficult for him, for his campaign to actually make these flights on time using commercial that he had to do private ahead of time. I mean, let me give you an example. In the last week of the election, Sanders flew to 17 different events. 17 in 1 week. 9 states. So, look, that's a lot of campaigning and not a lot of time, right? So there was no way they could have handled that. Now, following that article, which enraged a lot of progressives, the spokesman for Senator Bernie Sanders' 2016 campaign is not the spokesman for the new campaign, but for the old campaign, decided to fire back. Now, this is Michael Briggs, right? He told Politico of Hillary Clinton and her staff, quote, "You can see why she's one of the most disliked politicians in America. She's not nice. Her people are not nice." Sanders busted his tail to fly over the country to talk about why it made sense to elect Hillary Clinton. And the thanks that we get is this kind of petty, stupid sniping a couple years after the fact. It gets better. Briggs also called Clinton and her staff, quote, assholes. Oh, I love it. Quote, "It doesn't make me feel good to feel this way, but they're some of the biggest assholes in American politics." Absolutely. 100% correct. And why do I say that? It's not because I don't like them or didn't like them personally. I've never met these people. But the way that they treat Bernie Sanders and the way that they treat Bernie Sanders supporters who overwhelmingly voted for Hillary Clinton in the election, more so than the Hillary Clinton supporters voted for Obama in the 2008 election, in case you guys remember, these are the Pumas, right? Most Sanders supporters said, yes, we don't want to have Donald Trump. Yes, we're going to support Hillary Clinton, and we're going to vote for Hillary Clinton. But there is a smear going on of Bernie Sanders supporters. They're sexist, misogynistic, overwhelmingly white. That is not true. Yes, I realize that I am sort of like a poster person for the alleged Bernie bro, white male in the, in their mid 30s, etc. But in reality, the Sanders support has always been incredibly diverse. And even though Bernie Sanders sometimes trips up on things like, racial justice, generally, he's incredibly good on those issues. So he gets unfairly smeared. That's why we're saying these guys who are constantly putting out that garbage are assholes. To this day, people like Neera Tanden, Adam Paramenko, Zach Pekanis, right? And even John Podesta, they continue to attack and smear Bernie Sanders and blame him for Donald Trump winning. And that's not true. Oh, he didn't campaign for her hard enough. Really? Well, from this article, by the way, this article directly contradicts that. The fact that he campaigned so much for her and traveled to so many states on such a, in such a short time that he needed those private flights to be able to make it. That just shows that their argument is based on nothing more than just pettiness. Shouldn't they be thankful that he worked so hard? No, they're never going to be. Because Bernie Sanders had the gall to commit the worst crime against Hillary Clinton, contesting her in a primary. And they can't stand him for that. They can't stand that he's running again. So, of course, here come the smears. First Politico, now Washington Post. It's 2016 all over again. They're all against Bernie Sanders. But there is one major difference. Bernie Sanders is now well known. He is a front runner. He's raising millions of dollars from small donors. And he now has a volunteer army 1 million strong. The establishment is still using the 2016 Hillary playbook against Bernie Sanders. But now the difference is Sanders has already survived that. And now he's ready for it. And so are we. Okay. One more story for you guys. An Arkansas Republican is now proposing that they cut school lunch funding in order to improve reading scores. Now, this is this bill, I should say, which has been proposed, if passed, would reduce a district's national school lunch funding if they were struggling in the reading department over a period of time. So what it would do is it would cut funding to schools who are seeing a lowering of their reading scores. Now, he stresses, well, if they stay the same, then their school lunch funding will stay the same. But if it goes lower, then we're just going to have to cut it. Now, wait a minute. He actually wants to make school lunches worse for students who are doing poorly in reading. How is that going to help? Now, Clark told KTHV in Kansas that the bill does not punish a district if it's stuck at a certain level, only if it decreases, and he explains his reasoning. I'm not new to controversy. You don't get anything important done without confrontation and taking a few knocks. Seeing that Arkansas children can read is worth a few bruises. When we were at 32% reading proficiency, I was told my bills were too controversial, and we couldn't do any better than we were. Now we are at 41%, so I'm thankful I didn't listen. But that still means almost 60% of our kids are graduating and can't do the most basic thing we send them to school for well, read. My bill would require that a school district improve their reading proficiency by 0.001 every 2 years. In most businesses, I would be laughed at for suggesting such a small goal. But sadly, many educators act like I have asked them to storm the beaches at Normandy. Improve 0.0001 every 2 years. Basically, the standard is just don't go backwards. It appears I have much more faith in our schools than many of our educators do. So now, this guy, look, I get what he's trying to do, but here's the thing. How is this going to help? How is this going to help? But look, this is a conservative mindset. And the reason I wanted to do this story. The mindset is we're going to take things away from you if you do worse, and only give it back if you do better. That's a very disciplinarian type of mindset. But remember, this has everything to do with a decent school lunch. You want to take away a decent school lunch, that's not a good motivator. Kids need proper nutrition to be able to perform at their best. And look, it's not just about nutrition, but that's a really, really important factor. It's also about other things, right? So in my mind, schools should never cut funding for things like lunches or even play equipment, because it has also been shown in studies that good times for children to play and release and to go and, be kids, that actually also helps them go and learn. And so you don't cut funding for programs like that if you want to do anything, if you want to have good educated children. Now, there are probably other factors at play too. Classroom overcrowding, right? That's probably a problem in Alabama. Not enough funding, as I said, for schools in general. Access to materials. Teachers who aren't overburdened and underpaid. Good teachers who will excite children to learn and to read better. Rampant poverty in the areas where the children are coming from. All those are different factors. And so the mindset of punishment and discipline is not going to be effective here. And so I think at most, what this will do is it's not going to motivate the school children to do better. It's going to hurt kids in the school system and further deprive them of actual precious funding. And look, at worst, it could be a way to consciously starve schools of more funding, maybe in a literal sense, because they don't believe in public education. I don't know if that's the motivation here, but it is possible, and we have certainly seen a coordinated attack on education in this country, and I wouldn't be surprised. Either way, this is a bad piece of legislation. Yes, good intent, bad execution. Maybe instead of taking away funding, providing more incentives, different incentives to try to boost that reading score. Because again, reading is super important, but it doesn't start by taking things away. Okay. All right. That's it. That's all I got here. Thank you for going on the nation with me today. Thank you for liking and sharing the video. Make sure you do that to the stream. Make sure you do that for all the clips that I'm going to put up. And please like our Facebook page, facebook.com/TYTNation. We have one super chat here from Mark Davis. It says, thanks for the show from a Midwestern factory worker. Well, I was a Midwestern factory worker myself, so I hear you. I don't know if this is just a thing between factory workers, but the head nod, right? When you see somebody who's worked in that field, you give them a nod, because, we know. I don't know if that's a thing everywhere else, but at least in the factories that I've worked in, that's a thing. Okay. Anyway, thanks you guys. Coming up next, TYT. So go there for that if you're interested. If not, we'll see you guys tomorrow. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you tomorrow.